inside the War Room from Washington, D.C. is Bill Press, host of Current TV's Full Court Press, but the Bill Press Show from here on out for one more day anyway. And from Atlanta, Jason Johnson, senior editor at Politic365.com. Welcome back to both of you. Bill, I'm going to start with you. Well, it's always good to see you, Bill. And you know, I know that you had your last Current show today. We might as well talk about it now. And you're going to be, where can people live stream your show going forward?
Tomorrow morning, BillPressShow.com. We were a radio show before Current TV. We will be a radio show after Current TV. The show must go on, right, as we say. And then starting September 3rd, we will be on Free Speech TV and on Talker.tv. So people can still watch us on TV, just a different channel, and stream us online. And, of course, listen on the radio, including right there in San Francisco, Michael.
Yeah, exactly. And bpshow.com is the @Twitter for Bill. So, Bill, let's go to the news. From Washington's perspective, is there any good option on Egypt?
Well, I think there's a necessary option. You know, this does really put the president in a tough spot, between a rock and a hard place, as they say. But I think the administration made a mistake in not calling this a coup from the beginning and in suspending aid from the beginning. Because to tell the military, please don't do this again, which we did when they massacred 75 people. Now they've massacred, and I've been told that this toll is going to climb probably to 1,000 or more. You gave the count of 630. You see, they paid no attention to our plea for nonviolence, or our plea to stop it. I think we have to show, listen, they are killing people with our weapons and our bullets, and that is a disgrace. I think we should cut off aid today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It seems like, and it's also not the kind of money that's going to start or end anything there. The money should be out, also being, you know, once in a while doing something symbolically is important. Jason, there's a sense that at the end of the day, the U.S. is going to fall in line with whoever comes out on top in Egypt. Is that really true?
Yeah, probably. Look, you know, this administration doesn't seem to be about the business of nation building in the way that not only the Bush administration, but most previous administrations have. Whoever comes to power, as long as the United States believes that they're going to be relatively stable, we would rather have the bully that's always going to be there on a street corner than the thug who changes every other weekend. So, unfortunately, I think that's what we're going to end up doing. Whether we keep our money there or whether we take our foreign aid out, I think what we're seeing is this is just a gestation process of any country that goes through change. And I don't think there's much we can actually do unless we put boots on the ground, and no one wants that. Yeah,
and that's a great point. I mean, nobody does want that. So it remains obviously to be seen, but I think it's a great point about turning this over to somebody who will be there all the time, however unsavory at times that may be. I want to come back home. I want to move to something that we've covered here a lot in the War Room since I've been here. It's very close to our hearts. August 28th is the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and this speech.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Bill, if Dr. King were with us today, it's sometimes a silly hypothetical, but I think important because I want to know what he would tell progressives to focus on. What is calling to us today with, quote, the fierce urgency of now, as he said?
Well, listen, I will defer to Jason on this, but I would say 2 things from my perspective. And I also want to point out that the legendary, iconic John Lewis is going to speak at this 50th anniversary, and he spoke at the first one. I think he's the last of the speakers alive who spoke there. And I find that so thrilling and so meaningful. So I think maybe John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. today would say 2 things. Number one, let's remember that March on Washington was about jobs and economic justice. And I think that's one thing that Martin Luther King would be telling us today. There are too many people in this country who are still out of work, who haven't seen their real wages go up in the last 10 or 15 years, are really hurting. 47 million Americans living in poverty. That should
Yeah.
be our focus, and we must keep the focus on civil rights. And God knows that North Carolina is teaching this, and the Supreme Court is teaching this. And 50 years later, we are still fighting over the basic freedom of voting rights. I mean, that is uncalled for, just unbelievable.
And you know that he would be there on the ground in North Carolina. Jason, Jim Crow is no longer, of course, the law of the land, but Americans still live deeply segregated lives in our neighborhoods, our workplaces, our schools. Is there anything in the progressive agenda today that addresses this, or do we need to focus more on it?
Oh, there always needs to be a focus on it. And I'm sure, if Martin Luther King, were to come back alive today, he would be disgusted at the amount of segregation that we still see. He would see a movie like The Butler and say, my goodness, it has that much really changed. He would look at the grotesque inequality in income in the United States and say, I cannot believe you people haven't gotten anything done in the 50 years since I've been dead. And so I think what probably the progressive movement needs to remember, and in particular remember with this president, is to continue to light fires under the feet of politicians to stay angry and passionate about these issues. It's not like you can fix income equality. It's not like you can just fix racism. These are rain leaking through the roof. You have to constantly patch it up, or it will continue to flood the home. And I think the problem is there's a belief, unfortunately, that some of these problems get fixed and we can move on, as opposed to realizing that they're supposed to be ongoing struggles.
Yeah, and for so many, we had Christine Pelosi on yesterday, for so many, Bill, people think, oh, we elected a black president, so all of our problems on race are over. And of course, we know that's not the case. Has he been too tepid on issues of race? And if so, why do you think that is?
I don't want to pile on President Obama, right? But I do think, and he does get criticism. Some of it, I believe, is justified, Michael. Is that I don't think he's been as outspoken as he could be. I mean, he'd certainly condemn the Supreme Court decision on voting rights, but I didn't see the passion, and I didn't see, as Jason points out, his sticking to these issues and making it, if you will, the hallmark of his presidency. Perhaps he feels because then people would say, well, you're just being a black president rather than president for all Americans. But I think we need leadership on this issue, more leadership from him, I would like to see.
Yeah, and Jason, I'll let you have a quick shot at that one.
Yeah, I mean, of course he could work a lot harder. And you know what? We can say whether it's about being a black president, this, that, or the other. It's his constituents. And any president's job is to get in there and push policy for the very people who fight to get them in office, whether that's conservative Christians, whether that's women, whether that's African Americans. And Obama has been very much lacking in that area for his strongest constituency group.
Yeah. Well, Bill, Jason, it has been an absolute treat, I know for our viewers, but also for this host, to hear your insights on politics as long as I've been in this space. I want to ask each of you to quickly give us some parting wisdom. What are the biggest stories our viewers should follow going forward? Bill, I'll give that to you.
Oh, wow. You could have warned us ahead of time, right?
No, they told I was going to, and they said, let's not.
No. Here's what I believe is I think it's important that we be who we are and be proud of who we are and continue to fight for the progressive ideals that we believe in. And that's a whole range of things. It is civil rights, it is voting rights, it's economic justice, it is global warming. It is just making sure that every American enjoys the complete fullness of the rights of the Constitution and the American dream. Conservatives never give up. They never bend over. They never stop fighting. And I think sometimes we liberals kind of coast, and we can't do that. We just got to maintain the strong fight, be proud of who we are, and fight like hell.
And people should absolutely listen to what Bill Press just said. Jason, you owe me $1 because you had time to think about your answer. Go ahead.
I'm going to say this, and this is, you said the biggest story heading forward. Demographics are destiny. And we're going to look back on this time period, and we're going to see the last kicking and screaming, fighting, pouting of a small, shrill group of racist Americans who want to stop America from becoming what it's going to become. No matter what any of us want to think or what any of us want to believe, this country is becoming younger, it's becoming browner, and consequently it's more progressive on racial issues, more progressive on economic issues, more progressive on sexuality and gender issues. So while politicians on some sides want to try and stop this from happening, and politicians who claim that they support these changes want to dilly-dally, It's the future. This is going to happen. And we should be getting ahead of these curves and changing our policies to fit how this country is going to become, rather than screaming and yelling and kicking about what we think it might want to be.
And nobody wondered why I wanted to
Amen.
have Bill Press and Jason Johnson on my last show. Those were some great exclamation points. We are a lucky country because we have Bill Press on the radio still. We have Jason Johnson at Politic 365. Thank you both for being so important to our show.